I heard an interesting
Any latest
reflection
research?
by a psychogeriatrician. He said it's a bit like a 2-year-old tantrum. You know, so they're irrational and you can't do much about them, but you just got to work with the 2-year-old until they progress through it. And it could be a combination of tiredness. It's just their perception is you know, that for that moment. But you can't rationalise it. So sundowning is something, when it's handled well, it's a bit like handling a tantrum of a 2-year-old, because they're not, you can't rationalise it. You've just got to.
Kia ora, good morning, kia ora, and welcome to this podcast series on dementia. This morning we're going to look at what I'm calling the beginner's guide to dementia, what it is, where it is, the where, what and how of dementia. I've got with me two very special guests, Carol Fisher, who's a trustee of Dementia New Zealand, and Tanya Lee, who is a dementia advisor here in Rotorua. So sit back and enjoy this podcast series, The Beginner's Guide to Dementia. Kia ora, ladies, and welcome to this podcast session. This morning we're going to be talking about, it is called The Beginner's Guide to Dementia, and for that very reason that I want you both to give us your wonderful years of experience across the kaimahi, across the work that you do, the mahi that you do with dementia, around care support, around the progress or the lack of it, and all of those wonderful things that you're both able to bring to this podcast this morning. So, and just to introduce Tanya Lee, from who's a dementia advisor, but also you started off as a
registered nurse.
Yes.
And still currently practicing registered nurse, and have been a registered nurse for over 30 years.
Aye.
Yeah, doing many different and varied roles, and that's led me to my current role, which I absolutely love.
Yes.
I love this job. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Tanya. And to Carol Fisher, who is a trustee with Dementia New Zealand. Welcome. Looking forward to this morning?
Yes, I think so. And it's to me, raising awareness is huge, because it's one of our key, I guess, principles is people don't have to journey alone. So whatever I can do to contribute to people being aware of that is, to me, is a positive. Is positive. Yeah. So
awesome. Well, look, let's start with that wonderful collection of kupu words: what, where, and why. What, where, and why, and it's a really kind of a good springboard to be able to launch into this. And I say it carefully, the very simple view of dementia, because it's not simple. But for a lot of our audience who while they have a knowledge of dementia, I really wanted this morning to be able to look at an entry level of what we might think dementia is, and even in that, and again carefully saying the simplicity of what, why and where, I'm sure that with the experience that you wonderful wahine have, that you'll be able to give us some really good taonga stories and advice from those things. So what is this thing called dementia? What is this thing that tragically takes a hold of our families, of our workmates, and holds them hostage to their potential, that holds them at a place where they stop being everything that they are entitled to be? What is dementia as you see it, Tanya?
Yeah, so dementia is a set of neurological symptoms, and it's an umbrella term for many different kinds of dementia. So I think there's like at least 200 types of dementia. And the most common type is Alzheimer's. And sometimes people get a little bit mixed up with Alzheimer's and dementia.
As being
different.
Yeah.
Whereas Alzheimer's is the most common type of dementia. So 70% of people diagnosed with dementia will have an Alzheimer's type. Yeah. And so because Alzheimer's is the most common type, I can just describe that a little bit, if you like.
Yeah.
So because different types of dementias have different kind of disease pathways, I suppose, yeah. And so Alzheimer's, that is caused by plaques that form in the brain cells. So beta amyloid is a protein that forms on the inside of the brain cells. And then there's also a protein called tau, T-A-U, that forms on the outside of the brain cell. And what happens with that is it causes damage to the connections in the brain cells.
Yes.
And so that's where people start to see the symptoms of dementia.
Yes.
So that includes things like, well, the most common symptom for this type of dementia is short-term memory loss. But dementia is not just memory loss. It's also thinking, behaviour, mood, how we understand things, problem solve, and all of these things start to affect our daily lives. Yeah. And then slowly what happens is the proteins basically kill the brain cells, and then the brain starts to lose its volume and starts to shrink. Yeah.
Because you did, you know what, that one word in there that sticks out to me is that word plaque.
Okay.
Right? And you did, hey, you know, I put plaque, right? Plaque usually turns up on my teeth, right? But it's the same kind of build-up, right?
Yeah.
Hey, it's the time layer on layer on layer on layer.
Yeah.
That eventually it becomes bigger, that plaque layer becomes bigger than it needs to be.
And it takes over the brain cell. So that the tau protein, it actually develops tangles on the outside of the brain cell.
Yeah.
And destroys it, really.
Yeah. Here's a word, amyloid. Does that belong somewhere in that glossary of terms?
Yeah. So the amyloid, Carol, it's a type of protein too, isn't it?
And they're all contributing to that tangle. It's a bit like if you think of the brain as a complicated computer with all this wiring going everywhere.
Correct.
You've actually got interfering with the way the pathways of the wiring are working. So that combination of all of those chemicals that we've just talked about, or the plaques, they interfere with this what's normally a two-way track for wiring in your brain. And over a long period of time, average journey's 8 to 10 years. But every day a person with dementia wakes up, they've lost more brain cells every day. So a lot of the research is about, we can't cure it. Can we just stop a little bit the rate of loss of brain cells? And there's some thoughts about that. But it's every day that you wake up, you've lost more brain cells, and that impacts on how you function. So that's the mystery. What causes what starts the cascade of brain cell death, and why can't we stop it?
And what causes the build-up of the protein.
And unfortunately, with your nerve cells, they don't regenerate. If I cut my skin or broke a bone, it heals, but there's something about nerve cells that don't regenerate. So you lost them, They're gone forever.
And eventually it overtakes the normal function of your brain, right?
Yeah.
And then you start to shut down.
Yeah, and the brain, so the protein, it damages those brain cells and the connections between the neurons, the brain cells, and slowly over time it kills them. Yeah, and then the person loses those abilities. Funnily enough, though, sometimes people can have good and bad days,
still,
and that depends on how if they've had a good night's sleep. If they're well rested, if they're well hydrated, have good nutrition, that can really help their day. But towards the end of the day, people's cognition and functioning can get worse. And generally, people living with dementia are better in the mornings, especially if they've had a good night's sleep.
Yes.
And some days, some fat whānau member are like, some days I think, have they even really got dementia?
Yeah.
Because
they're
they
functioning.
are really functioning well. Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
Some of those, if we're looking for signs or in particular early signs of dementia, what are we looking for, or what is something that's obviously can tell us or tell a family member or start to ask the question, something seems to be awry or with my mum or my dad or my auntie or my moko? What, in your experience, is an early look at, oh, they've forgot something? Oh, mum usually does this, but she's now doing that. What in your experience could you tell us about that, Carol?
Yeah. Sorry, Carol. No, you go.
Actually, I think, although classically we talk about memory, in my experience with our lovely sister-in-law, money, being able to calculate or manage money, or just that simple thing of change or calculating. So that numbers thing was quite an early sign for her. And also retelling a story that you've heard, and even if it was you're with a person for an hour, and halfway through they're telling the story that they told in the beginning, they don't recognise that they told you
again already. They've told you already.
So they don't recognise that. So so to me, those at a personal level, those are two things that we picked up. But I know that there are other classic sort of agreed signs too, aren't there?
Yeah, so, and that is such a good example, what Carol just said about how people who used to be really good at things, like if someone was really good at maths or balancing the books, or someone was really good at doing cooking and baking and all of that sort of thing, and then all of a sudden, you start to notice that they're no longer managing that, and they're not, like, actually the baking didn't come out when they used to make perfect cakes, or they're not balancing the books, they're making miscalculations, like instead of putting $100 they put $10,000 to transfer funds. I know that one because I have a family member that happened, and that's why it's just so important to, if you do notice those things, to start trying to, support people with things like that to keep them safe.
I recall a carer, a wife talking about her husband, and they'd gone to the mall in Rotorua, and she'd gone into Woolworths to do some shopping, so maybe kind of like 25 minutes. So he'd often stay in the car park. So he was there, and he drove home, and she came out with the shopping, and she said, the bugger, I've had quite a good relationship, but he said,
got her.
He's got me, he's just winding me up. And he'd forgotten that he just thought, I better go home now. So his ability to retain that information for a period of 25 minutes was gone.
And you can really see how that catches people off guard. And they might launch into, left me.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, how dare you do that? Yeah.
Because you can mistake some things as normal aging, right? Right. Well, that's because he's or she is getting on, getting on, right? So,
Yeah.
But not every case is about getting on in age as to how well you remember things or do things, right? Because it's turning up now in a lot of younger generation of people, right? So is it hereditary? Is diabetes, now what's the word, predisposed, right? Hey, I'll speak for myself here, right? Right. So I have a number of predisposed things that generationally, have been there in my and hey, diabetes, right? It's popular, or I guess, with Māori families like mine. So I take medication for that, and I control that particular ailment, right? Predisposed, well, blah blah blah. You could put that to a genetic thing, or that type of DNA type of hand me down thing, right? Can we say the same thing for dementia? Is that something we can take a calculated hit at, or not?
And I'm happy to answer that. Yeah.
Hereditary. Is it something?
So it's a very small number. It's very few people actually genetically will get Alzheimer's or dementia. Well, the Alzheimer's type of dementia. So that is a genetic mutation that is passed down from one family member to another.
It can be.
Yeah, but it's a very small number. I think it's 1 or 2% of people. And generally the people who unfortunately get this genetically inherited form of Alzheimer's, this generally happens when they're younger. So we're talking about in their 50s or even younger. It's a very small amount of people that get dementia, get Alzheimer's through
by way of
genetic mutation.
Yeah.
So it's quite random. You can get, high court judges. You can get people that,
right.
The guys that or the people that pick up the rubbish. It can be quite quite random. So
I've watched, as I'm sure a lot of people have, different podcast stories on people who have dementia, and what I really just is so much more gut-wrenching to watch is those ones who have lived highly intelligent lives where they've worked in scientific research, right? And developed programs for NASA, or have become lecturers at universities. All of a sudden they have become this other version of that highly intelligent person to this and I will carefully say, because I don't know what that is inside that person. I know in there that there's someone.
They're still there.
They're still there.
They're still there.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just, how do you get your head around the fact they've come from such a active brain thinking life to this other version of that?
Yeah. Well, and it's like, so dementia, it's a life-limiting disease. It's like if someone gets a diagnosis of cancer and it's terminal. Getting a diagnosis of dementia is the same. The journey is longer and the losses are great. And a part of that loss is watching them lose their brain functioning. And, you know, people make jokes about dementia and people, you know, with their memory, oh, they lost their memory and make a joke. I mean, kind of that's okay if that's within your family or friend circle. But we don't really make jokes about people when they have been diagnosed with cancer. So, and they're both terminal or life-limiting diseases. And it is a grieving process for people. You know, they go through the same grieving process as when anybody gets delivered a diagnosis like that. So there's, you know, denial, anger, and then hopefully acceptance. What are the other signs of grief? Denial, anger.
Because that's for the carer as well. They're losing the person a bit at a time.
Yes. Yeah.
I was just picking up too on what you were saying, Jack. There was a woman that was the scientific advisor at a very high level in Australia a few years ago. Her name escapes me at the moment, but she had quite good insight for quite a long time. Very cerebrally intelligent, and she wrote a book, and it was "Who Will I Be When I Die?" Because it is different. You are still there, but there are major enough changes that you know, it was her insight in saying, yeah, who will I be? What will I be like when I die? Because acknowledging the progressive nature of it and the fact that that control, you're not immune just because you're very intelligent.
Yeah,
you're not immune.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
And the well, my father died of dementia, and he was a really great artist. And I remember him trying to draw something. This was at the very end of his journey, and he couldn't draw anything. And that was like that. That's a great sense of loss. You know, he's lost all that wonderful ability as an artist, and then it had gone. And that was pretty upsetting. To see that.
The and you talk about, you know, that where your dad in that later kind of, if I can call it a later stage of dementia. So, and how many stages, if we can put a number to that, can we put a number to that? I know there's some data around how many there are.
Yeah.
And there are, Carol, there are a number of from here to there.
Yeah, I think some people sort of get quite scientific about it and say there's sort of 5 or 6 or 7, but there's basically 3. It's early, mid, and late. If you want to be practical about it, and you can pretty much identify where that shift is too, can't you, Tanya?
Early, mid, and late.
Yeah, I mean, for most of us, that's what makes sense and what we relate to when it comes to if we're in that journey or we're supporting someone. There's 3 stages.
I'll just make a note of that, Jack. There isn't 14.
For all intents and purposes, that's just...
How did I get 14?
It's academic sort of interesting, but not really practical.
I like mid, early, and late because that's understandable. And easy to get around each of those stages. And how are they? Okay, so let me ask this: is it the transition from each one is it obvious? Is it, put it this way, I've talked to people who have in a short space of a year have seen that transition, if they're those 3 from just like that, speaking to their dad, you know, just in a year later have gone from early to late so quickly, right?
That's fast.
Is the transition from mid, early, and late to is it obvious? Do we see differences?
Well, normally dementia is a slow progressive disease, so you wouldn't expect to see sudden declines unless it's like a vascular type of dementia, where a vascular dementia is what they call a step down. So vascular is like when people have strokes or little strokes, which are commonly called TIAs. And so when there's an insult to the brain vessels, blood vessels, then you can expect to see a sudden decline, and then the person will plateau out. So so that's where you would see a sudden change or a rapid change, because that is not generally normal in dementia, although I think there is a dementia that can have a sudden change, or there's so many. But generally, as a rule, it's a slow progressive decline. And I mean, like humans love putting things in boxes. And so in the early stages, you've got, okay, you can expect to see this, 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 and this. In the middle stages is generally where things can become quite risky and tricky. So people might be used to going for a walk, and then the risk is they might get lost again, get lost and disorientated. And then the later stages, you might see them not very mobile, not eating or drinking very well. So it can be quite a subtle change, but definitely when these risky behaviours come in, that is the most riskiest time for people with dementia, and where things can be put into place to help them maintain their independence, like say, and keep them safe and minimise risk, like a GPS watch or a tracker or something like that.
Right.
Where the whānau member can track the person as they can still go.
And you can get those here, right? It's right. It's a lot of technology that's
there's lots of different types. There's actually a free online. If they carry a mobile phone and it's charged, you can get the Life 360 app.
Right.
For free.
Okay. Right. Interesting.
Just to add to that too, I think if I was picking numbers, I'd say early 4, mid 3, late 2, and a lot of people end up, and it's the degree of independence that changes over that time.
You more reliant.
So you can do less. You need help to shower, for example, in the middle stage. You need help to. You won't know when you need to eat. Some toileting, and then often the degree of dependency gets quite severe at the end, and it's commonly, the stats tell us, people are often in care and residential care for that last period, because it's 24 hour. So your degree, and there's little things like getting up and getting dressed, going to the toilet, having a shower, being able to make a cup of coffee. That sometimes the sequencing goes. So there are those. It's that slide into more dependence that happens across that period.
Here's a term I want to put past you, ladies. Sundowning. I'm like, okay, sundowning. I could quote an Elton John song out of that and think, maybe that's about sitting on a beach, with tequila and watching the sun go, blah blah blah, because it sounds really like nice. When in actual fact, it isn't that at all. It's this other thing, this other term that we've given for a person who is, and this is where I hand it over to you ladies to give us that answer. What is sundowning? Do
you want me to do? Okay. So sundowning is when a person with dementia starts to become more confused than they normally are. So, and the reason they call it sundowning is because commonly it occurs in the late afternoon, evening, but actually sundowning can occur at any time. But then it's like, so typically a very common thing that a person might start doing or saying if they start sundowning is they might want to go home. And they might start pacing around the house. I want to go home, I want to go home. And then the care partner or the spouse or, wife or husband might say, but you are home, we've lived here for 20 years. And they're like, no, I will need to go home, I need to go home. And they can become much more agitated and more confused. And so often that going home is they want to go home to a house in their earlier years.
Wow.
Somewhere where they felt safe and secure generally.
Yes.
Or had a very happy time.
Yeah.
So, which that's called time shifting. So, and I guess the hard thing for the family is when we're trying to explain that to them, is that it's important for the family member to go into the person's world as opposed to trying to get them to come into our world, because you cannot reason with them. They cannot understand, and they're living actually in a different time. So they don't know why people sundown. Have you heard?
I heard an interesting reflection by a psychogeriatrician. He said it's a bit like a 2-year-old tantrum. So they're irrational, and you can't do much about them, but you just got to work with the 2-year-old until they progress through it. And it could be a combination of the tiredness. It's just their perception is that for that moment. But you can't rationalise it. So sundowning is something, when it's handled well, it's a bit like handling a tantrum of a 2-year-old, because they're not. You can't rationalise it. You just got to just keep them safe till they feel okay at the other end of it. And not everyone gets it.
No,
but it's
really
it's distressing.
Yeah,
it's distressing.
It must, to be around. I mean, hey, distressing to be around a 2-year-old that's throwing a tanny, but to be around a person that is unable to communicate.
Yeah.
So where is home? Where is home a physical? Is home a physical place where they remember, like you said, in their 15 or 20 a time ago, where they felt safe.
Yeah.
So is that actually a physical space that they're talking about, that they want to go to?
Yeah. And so we sort of often say, get into their world, find out where that home is, ask them about it, and then come up with what's called the compassionate lie. So it's like, yes, you validate the person, we're living with dementia, and you say yes, and talk about what it was like for them in that home, and then say, yes, that's a good idea, we will go home, but it's getting late now. So how about we leave in the morning? In the morning they've forgotten it.
You're right.
Yeah.
I heard a really good explanation once at a conference, and the guy was up on the board, had a whiteboard, and he had a line, and he said, this is when you were born, and this is when you were 10, 20, 30, and this is when you're, like, say, 85. Yeah. And he got the whiteboard eraser, and he just said, this is what dementia does. Yeah. So it just rubs it backwards. Rubs it backwards. Right. And a really good example of that was a West Coast rest home. They had a guy that was a High Court judge. Yeah. And what he did was, he woke up one morning, he was in advanced stages, and he wanted the boiler suit, like overalls. And it turned out, talking to family, that when he was younger, he'd come over to the West Coast, and his family would take him down the mines.
Oh, really?
So his lifeline had been rubbed right back to when he was 7.
Wow.
You're right.
And his reality was, you put me in a boiler suit, I'm there all day, and I'm happier. They did it.
Yeah, right.
So he'd lost all of that previous memory, and he was living, when he was 7, he was living in
7.
So that was quite clear to him.
Yeah.
But the rest had gone.
Scary.
But it just gives you that their reality is where they're at the moment, and you have to meet them there. Yeah. Not say, well, actually, orientating them is just frustrating for them and you.
Yeah, that's right. And if I could shift us slightly to looking at caregiving and supporting a person with dementia, because that's a tough job in itself, right? Frustrating, like you said, Carol, and a big job for those that look after somebody with dementia. What what are those challenges around support workers in today's, shall I say it, government, climate, where we're at? Is it are we being supported? Are our kaimahi care workers being supported to be able to take care of our people? Go
That's
on.
That's a can of worms.
You know.
They talk about the carer role being a 25-hour day, which it becomes certainly as things progress. But there is a national organisation called Carers New Zealand, and they did a very good report a few years ago with our input as well. The most important thing, it's a marathon, not a sprint. The most important thing is just regular breaks. We're not doing that well. We're giving people regular respite breaks, are we?
Well,
we're not doing that well at the moment.
And there's so many layers and reasons to that.
So
there is a lack of respite beds in care homes because they're full. And lots of family members don't live locally anymore. So, family members live globally, they live in Australia. So that widening that support circle can be really hard for some people. Some people, when they're quite elderly, they've lost a lot of their friends and some of their family to help with that. And then you get people who try and think, I'm going to do this on my own. So, and it's impossible you can do it for a little while, but in the long term, you need to have a support crew.
A village.
A village. Formal support, informal support.
And on reflection, I think the carer support component of our service, you go back 40 years where the whole thing started at grassroots in Canterbury. A group of social workers had some carers that said, we're really struggling. So it's what we know is as the condition progresses, our support is more for the carer and the whānau, extended whānau, than it is necessarily for the person with dementia, because the insight is such that they don't see anything's wrong. So it's crucial in our service to support the carer because that's the hard road sometimes, the tough journey. And
and bless them, our care workers, sometimes they're the last to tell you that they actually need help. Right? I'll speak. My wife's been in midwifery practice for 35 years, and she's seen every midwifery service. She's worked in every midwifery service, and I think when you're working in that care and support for people, you actually build a it's kind of like a resilience to your own health, and sometimes your own health is at detriment to the care and the career that you're involved in. Sometimes you can overlook your own well-being for the passion and the drive and the that you have for the sometimes your career picks you. As nurses, I'm sure. I'm sure you would understand that it just seemed inevitable that you were going to end up in a care service, career, and sometimes you are the last to tell people that you're not
coping
good.
On reflection, I've been involved 30 years locally here, and commonly I hear the story from like yourself, Tania, and other dementia advisors who are at the coalface that a crisis is the point often where people seek help because they think I'm doing okay, and bang, it just that's people being resilient, which is fantastic. But that's the price they pay.
And then some people, the carer ends up in hospital. And then the adult children, they've then got to come in and start caring for the parent with dementia, not realising
how bad it is.
And look, I know it's. I'm just looking at my next question. I know it's a real simple question, but how can we manage? How can our care workers manage the toll and the stress of their career? And I was just talking to my daughter on the way here on this very thing, my daughter, her mother, my wife, midwifery. Sometimes it's as simple as reading a book. It's as simple as time out.
Yeah.
Time outing yourself from your, your passion, your work. Any thoughts on that, on getting away from that, from the coalface?
Of caring for your loved one with dementia? Yeah. So there are those mini breaks, and then planning breaks, and having a whānau chat page or a whānau hui's to plan and talk about how people can get their time out and breaks to look after themselves and recharge their batteries.
And as organisations, are you giving your kaimahi staff those opportunities to do that? Because we're under pressure here. Our DHBs and all of our care services right across are just under pressure.
I suppose for our service, it's when people are at home. So the predominantly the carers are the whānau, but they have got carer organisations going in to help as dependency increases.
Yes. Yep.
But certainly that's the battle is lobbying to get respite for whānau so they can do that. When it comes to the staff, the organisation they're working for would be in touch with how they're coping. So there's slightly two different groups there we're talking about, but regardless, respite is critical.
It is absolutely critical because they, like you say, they're doing a 25-hour job a day, and when we're in a normal, because their role changes from being a wife or a husband or a son or a daughter to being a carer and hands-on, and then when we're working in our regular jobs, we get 4 weeks annual leave.
And they don't.
That's right.
No, it's not a good situation at the moment. There's some lobbying by powerful groups to improve that. And the other thing is, I think the 60% of the money it costs for people to be cared for that have dementia, that's provided free by carers at home. Like, I'm saying the biggest proportion across internationally, carers give. So wouldn't you're saving whatever government and whatever country money by keeping people home as long as possible?
Correct, right?
So if you do that well,
so.
At that level you save money, but you're also giving a person a better quality of life if you can keep them home as long as possible, as long as everyone is coping.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think can we just cut here, guys? Alex, how much time did we got? Did I see that?
So about 40 minutes.
40 minutes left?
No, so you filmed 40.
Yeah.
So
cool.
About another 20.
Yeah. So we're just going to talk about this, and then we'll go out. We'll go out from here. So we'll probably spend a quarter of an hour and we're done. Cool. All right. How are you guys feeling? All right?
Perfect.
Cool. Do you guys want to grab?
I actually could I go to the toilet?
Yes, you can.
Oh, cool.
Go. Yeah. Grab some water. Have a stretch.
I'm good.
Okay. Cool. Yep. Lovely. This last. Yeah. How's it tracking on there? Yeah. Cool. Right. Yeah, no, chuck it back on. Yeah.
Yeah, it's doing really well.
Yeah.
Just you, Jack, just be mindful of your mic. Because you're very action-based.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yep. All right. I did bump it a couple of times, but yeah.
Just having a
Okay,
little
cool.
break.
Yeah.
I think we could be 15 minutes.
How are you feeling, Carol?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Yeah.
Very, very valuable. I haven't been involved. I mean, I understand what podcasts are all about, but the value of them in terms of, what you can convey, and it's great.
Isn't it?
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Oh, nice. That's a good sign. That's a good indicator. Thanks for that confidence booster.
Yes. Isn't it? Carol. I mean, I don't know. I mean, this, this is so, it's so foreign to me. I mean, I mean,
Yeah.
I grew up at a time where, you know, you yelled across the fence at your neighbour.
Sure.
You know, you asked if they had sugar.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
or a bit of butter.
Yep.
You
Sure.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right?
I know what you mean. Yep.
Hey, if they had apples on the tree to throw you
Sure.
some, or
Nice.
or on a good day you'd steal them. You know,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
My children came along, or our children came along,
Yeah.
and okay, well, all right, if I have to adjust to a few things, I will. You know?
Yes.
And then their children came along, and it's like, and you found yourself, you either going to sink or swim. Hey, in this generation of stuff, you know, stuff.
Yes.
How do you communicate?
Yeah.
And here we are. We're at this.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, that's
you know,
right.
We're at TikToking and Instagramming and every other thing that's happening. And I'm like, you know, it's what about you? You know, I mean, are you? You know, I mean, how I speak for myself, I feel like a dinosaur that has to catch up.
Yeah, isn't it though? Sometimes too, like I'm getting close to 70. Sometimes it's those things that you value that you think
you're holding out all right for 70. Just saying.
Just saying.
Holy heck!
So you think no, look, the things that do matter, and you know, if it's, and I guess you try to convey that in your own whānau and you know, like the whole stuff thing, and you know what, it's about values, and you know, culturally too. You know, what are we doing? Those values that should be retained, that are always timeless. You know, those are the things that whatever culture you have, those are the things that you hold on to. And I think they're
hard to hold on to in
this, well,
right?
Yeah, it is.
Some of them are.
And I guess you know, you're right. And I guess there's so much value in, you know, having instant access to information at any time. And all those things that go with it. But it's like anything, it's how you use it, eh?
It's currency. You know, it's currency, and I tell my kids any chance I get, you know, I've got 5 coins in my pocket, you know, right? And it's like, how am I going to spend it, you know, unless I have to? Currency. What is my currency? I just can't afford. I can't afford anymore to throw these pennies out like I used, you know. But it's just a whole new way of communicating these platforms. Tanya, you know, we were just talking about how foreign, how weird this is to be able to communicate
technology,
our stuff around how we grew up.
It's kind of nice. Our kids are in their 30s now, and they're real. Podcasts are more popular than I appreciated, and for good reason. You know, there's something in our DNA that just likes listening, and you know, in terms of people with you know, any kind of topic. Something about it that really does have value. It's great.
I think this room's really well done. I think it's great. It's even though there's all of that. It's actually really. You do actually feel like you're in a lounge.
Do. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well
They're all out there. Wendy, John,
okay.
Karen.
Okay.
All the big hitters. I look, and with Alex and his mum and dad and Taika and that, you know, to be able to wheelbarrow this thing through this technology. And I've said this to the boys in that, you know, the hero in this project is our stories.
Yeah, of course.
You know, it's the stories. You know, it's
of course.
It's you know, it's. I mean, you can see what we do here and how we do it and present, but it's
really cool.
It's at the end of the day, you know, it's putting this onto that platform and sending it out.
Such a good idea.
It's frightening. You know?
It's and for people to feel okay about, well, there's so much stigma still. Okay about just even talking about it and acknowledging it. You know, it's that's the biggest start.
And also, apparently the stats are 4 out of 5 families will come unstuck and go into dysfunction and fallouts on the journey of dementia. Because some people don't believe the person has dementia for one reason, and other people do. Some family members are in complete denial.
Yeah.
They haven't got dementia, especially it's hard when they have a good day.
That's me. I will be that guy.
Yeah, that's cool too.
I know it already. I know it, right? And my family knows it.
That's right. So they're prepared.
What? No.
Yeah. Nah, I'm sweet.
I didn't forget that. Where is she? Full of Woolworths. Oh,
Yeah,
hell.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
But even the fallouts with the family that are looking after the person with dementia,
Yeah.
even those
That can
family
happen.
members
Yeah.
go into
To happen.
can go into denial.
You can do it for a week, you can do it for a month, but it's the month on month
Yeah,
on month
month on
that
month
turns
on
into
month.
years.
Wake
That's
up the
even,
next day.
And even if you're a really loving family, it can be a very challenging journey.
It's very challenging.
Yeah.
There was a lovely Scottish resource that was put out a few years ago by their organisations there, and it says a road less rocky.
Yeah.
Is what we're helping. It can be rocky, but let's make it let's smooth out the potholes because you're lucky. The majority of people have distressing parts of the journey. There's no doubt about it.
Yes.
But then people can also have a lot of fun and still
A good quality of life.
have a good quality of life.
Yeah.
Still lots of
That's right.
laughs.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, we'll jump back on
Sure.
task. Alex, you ready? You probably were filming all that anyway, so yeah, right, wonderful. All right, so just to the last couple of beginner's guide questions to you, Wahine, and thank you for being on, excuse me, on with us this morning. I guess just if I can ask you both on alternative treatments to dementia. Now, I know that there's a number of prescribed medications, I guess, or treatments that we are able to give our family member or such. But what, if at all, is your knowledge around alternative methods of prescribed medication? Is there anything that you both might be able to offer to that?
So the donepezil is the government-funded tablet that the GP decides whether the person's appropriate to go on that medication, and if they are, they start them off slowly to make sure there's no side effects, and then if there's no side effects, then they continue. They increase that to the maximum dose, and then there they stay on that unless for some reason they need to come off it. But I think the stats are 50% of people who go on donepezil will see a slowing down of the progression of the disease, which is a slowing down of the progression of those plaques forming on and in the brain cells. And then for the other 50%, there is no change. And generally, it's not the person with dementia that sees the difference. It's the carers, the whānau, are the ones that see the difference. There is another medication that they can take, but it's not government funded. And then there's the all the other types of interventions that can help slow the progression, which is what we as an organisation encourage our clients and whānau, which is being sociable, learning new things, good diet, good hydration, all those kind of things, playing music, doing artwork, especially being social, is one of the most important things to do when a person is diagnosed with dementia, but even for people who aren't, we're social animals, aren't we? Yeah.
I think just looking at alternative treatments, because I mean, you can talk about other conditions like cancer and maybe diabetes or maybe arthritis, where people have a confidence in alternative, treatments.
Yeah.
When it comes to dementia, we'd be the first ones to stand up and throw our hands up and praise if there was a cure. Or if there was something that was significant. Along those lines, most international dementia organisations have medical advisors that are constantly trawling the research.
Correct.
That say, have we got any hope? Where's stuff happening?
Yep.
So at the moment, if there was any indication, like someone said, stop using aluminium pots or high dose vitamin C, we'd know about it. And that has happened. Yeah, and we'd know about it, but we have to be. It can't be misguided. It's got to show if it's got to have evidence, and it's got otherwise we're leading people up the garden path.
Yep.
So at this stage, you can't blame people for trying different treatments. Our stance as an organisation is we will only support it if it's got enough evidence to prove it. But we don't rubbish people who want to do something that's alternative.
Yeah.
But we can't hand on heart say, this is going to make a difference. But if it gives them hope, hey, if it gives people hope, and it helps their worldview of what's happening, you've got to sort of be a little bit empathetic.
Yeah, and really one of the best things we can do is reduce our risk factors.
Yeah.
So prevention is
big at the
actually our
moment.
biggest tool in our kit.
Yeah, they say 40%, up to 40% of types of dementia can actually be
prevented.
Yeah.
Or modified, reduced in terms of risks.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is those preventive factors are what they know about good heart health is good brain health. So good heart health is about dietary things, about exercise. It's about not smoking. So those things you could tick off for dementia prevention as well.
Yeah.
So,
and then also if you have hearing loss,
get that seen to. Yeah.
Get that assessed. Have hearing aids if you have reduced vision.
Those are additional, aren't
glasses.
they? Risk factors.
Yeah, manage your diabetes. It's all about sometimes those numbers.
Yes.
Your high blood pressure, your high cholesterol.
You can still get short straws, people.
Yeah. And some people can have some of those things and not get dementia anyway.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's a little bit.
Yeah.
And so, just a couple of questions to closing this off. And one is, I guess, just to specifically look over our Rotorua community and the people that you serve inside of your mahi. How are we doing? How are we holding up? How are our let's just close our borders in and try not to look at it nationally, because you know all of these families from Nongataha to Kotu, out on the east side where I live. God bless the east side, just saying. Nongataha, did I say that? But all of these, how are we going? We holding up okay? Are we doing all right?
So for those people that are engaged and have whānau support and friends, that's great. There's a lot of people out there that are on their own.
Yeah.
And it's really important to engage in a dementia organisation like Dementia Lakes. Join the support groups. That's where you'll meet people on the same journey as you and not feel so isolated. And the Rotorua Council is currently doing a policy on disability-friendly communities, and so and dementia is a part of that. So I think that's a wonderful initiative that they are doing at the moment. Yeah.
And I think the benefit of a small geographical area compared to other cities around the country is that the jungle drums will beat if you know someone who's been affected, and that that's kind of nice in a smaller geographical area like this.
Yes.
So that it's not difficult to find information, and it's not difficult to access sort of services that you need. And again, it's just making people aware that, look, you're doing this work, and especially carers, we're there to help make the road less rocky, and some people, they come in and out of the service, don't they? It's an 8-year, 10-year journey. We don't see them every week.
No.
You might not see them for 3 years because things are kind of cool.
Yes.
But at least it's a touch point. You can go back and say, oh, things are just going to, what. So the value of that is that you have this person helping you navigate that journey in a way that you use it as you need to. Yeah. So,
and get involved with activities happening in the community. So go to the social functions that are out there. Join Parkside. There's lots going on there.
Yeah, there is.
And art groups, and go out to the shows that are out there. All those things are just great to feel connected.
Yeah. Because there are plenty of spaces here in Rotorua for if social activities, walking spaces, engaging with the taiao, with our open spaces and that, as a part of preventing dementia, managing as our kaimahi workers, being a part of our natural environment, to be able to support and help themselves to care for our people with dementia. And I guess just as a last comment from you both on your own personal commitment to dementia. I know you both have personal family history with dementia, but just to go out with just something from yourself and your family on how you see this thing that we call dementia, what it looks like to you personally, and just some last thoughts on it. Tanya, you?
So your mother or your father or your husband or your wife or your sibling, they're still there. They're still there for a long, long time, and enjoy that and go into their world, and give them the opportunity to do meaningful activities and to do things that they enjoyed or even things they wanted to do. And they just need a bit more help and support to do that. And, be kind to yourself and be kind to your whole whānau in the journey, because everybody's perspective is a little bit different. And some people are in a different part in the journey.
Thanks for that, Tanya. Carol?
And I think with, especially I guess with our organisation being a support organisation, is that we're kind of like cheerleaders, look, you're doing good. Oops, we're going to be the ambulance now, we're going to pick you up.
Get up.
Get up.
Right.
That's cool.
Dust
And we
yourself
don't,
off.
and we don't want to take over at all. What we're saying is we're cheerleaders, and we're saying, let's, you're doing really well. Where can we kind of just support that? So I think at this stage,
Awesome.
it's really not, it's not okay to feel that people have to do it all by themselves. It's just marathon, not a sprint, and kind of need that, that extra support. But thank you for your time, Jack. That's great.
No, thank you. Thank you to both you, Wahine, for coming on and sharing your wonderful stories and, the career path that you both have forged in Rotorua and our surrounding areas. No doubt, we will learn from this time with you both. So, thank you for coming on. Appreciate you both.
Thank you.
Ka pai.